Okay, thanks for coming. Sorry I was late. Just thanks to Wendy for coming to the event, and Martin also for your advice and guidance, and as you said, being a foil to my outrageous idealism. So, as Wendy was saying, this project started off with a discussion event in May last year that many of you will have attended, where we asked people to submit their perspectives on their priorities for ocean management in New Zealand. I think we may have an analysis of those perspectives in the slides. I think we have these scraps up.
No, I didn't.
Right, okay.
Okay, I'll just put that up.
So when you receive your report, you will have in there a couple of graphs that categorize and analyze people's priorities for the marine environment, and we try to situate the rest of the document in the context of what people identify. And so I can summarize some of them here. We asked a couple of questions that we wanted people to respond to. The first of which was, what aspects of the existing ocean governance framework, what's happening now that works well? And people listed some quite interesting things. It was a much smaller list than all the others that were on the wall, which is interesting. People said that there's significant technical and scientific capacity that's often under-resourced, but that the technical capacity is there if we choose to build upon it. And that there is some current legislation and some current institutions that, again, there's possibilities to build upon if we choose to. The second question asked people what aspects of the existing framework are ineffective, and it's quite an interesting list as well. People said there's a lack of public education and communication, that there's an imbalance of economic, social, and environmental objectives, that there's a lack of a clear national goal or aspiration for the way in which we interact with our oceans, that there's a lack of scientific information, and we can debate the areas of that lack or where priorities should be put. That the legislation operates in a fragmented way, and Wendy and her team has done some analysis of that, which is not my area of expertise, but it's also interesting. And that also there's a fragmented political and policy process where ideas and information does not get communicated between user groups and between different regulatory agencies. So that was what's missing from the way we interact with the oceans. The third question we asked was relating to the institutions and the research and the instruments by which you can possibly define policy instruments for you, that people considered to be important in progressing towards a better system. And so again, we've tried to shape our conclusions and our recommendations around the things that people identified. The most important thing, which I think is interesting, is that people identified the need for public education and engagement around processes happening in the ocean and the ways that we interact with them. Secondly, some people recommended having a stakeholder forum along the lines of the Land and Water Forum that concluded recently. Again, we can debate the efficacy of that or how well it worked. It's an interesting idea. People recommended ecosystem-focused research, a particular passion of mine, and we'll talk about that again later. People recommended collaborative processes across sector boundaries and between user groups. And again, scientific research that establishes baseline data. So those are the top 5. We can go to that next slide, son. Great. So, in the context of all of that, and in the context of other research that's been done in New Zealand around ocean policy and priorities for the ocean, and also international research, we've come up with a model or a suggestion about a way that we think could possibly move us forward. The left-hand side of it is largely Wendy's, and I think she's keen to talk a bit more about the vision and the principles that we think can guide ocean governance a bit more. And so Wendy's just going to jump up and talk about those principles.
Yes, okay, and I've got an admission to make. We've got the wrong slide up there. But actually it's kind of quite a good opportunity to actually share the discussion that's gone over the last 4 or 5 hours. So basically this idea, so if you're thinking about strategy, you always look at means and ends. So those are the two levers. You know, what's the end where you want to end up, and what's the means that's going to get you there. And so this concept is, so the vision is sort of this overarching what the ends looks like. And so this is a discussion around the concept of a healthy and productive ocean. I don't think anyone sort of would disagree with that. And basically the idea behind that is, so how would you get that? This is through a collective commitment to stewardship. So it's a collaborative approach, because there are so many different perspectives and worldviews on the ocean. So it's going to be, and as I said, we can't even have ownership over a domain where the water runs around the planet. And even like today, we're picking up the papers seeing how the currents are slowing down and what those sort of ramifications can mean. So the concept is that, so if the end goal is healthy and productive, well, how are we going to get there? So this is the guiding vision is that there has to be some collective commitment to stewardship. So falls very much into Lionel's territory of how he was saying that experience that he had, how he saw people committed, that they created a place in a space. And then the idea around that is because when you have really complex, disorganised systems, you cannot go straight to rules. You're going to have to create some sort of something that will help you put some light into the way ahead. And that's why I suppose the big conclusion for this report is it's going to have to be principles, because we can't actually tell people to make decisions without having some sort of framework or guidance around it. So at the moment, like we say, the fishing industry is completely outside of the policy framework. And I'm being very generous here, but I think you could argue that is the case. So they can operate quite in a complete silo from the rest of the public policy to a large degree. So the only way to try and get everyone around the table is to try and be able to provide, not only an end game, but some sort of frame for quality decisions to be made, so that you can call upon these principles to help guide decision makers and design public policy that works for you. And once you've sort of got this, if you like, the principles or conceptual framework for that decision making, then you've actually got something. You can actually start talking about what those rules or more specific outcomes can be. So it's kind of like a middle road. It's like saying, okay, this is what we want in the end. We don't exactly know 100% how to get there right now, but if we try and hold on to some, basic principles for how we might get there, we may get there at least over time in a more iterative, collaborative, informed basis. So that's where, so the principles that, and they largely come up from your discussion, they continuously got woven through in James' narrative. Lionel continuously rang the bell on collaboration. And so much so that this slide, so my son and I were having a little, was the slide actually turned to informed and collaborative community, because it's really actually going to require the community to step up to be collaborative. And Lionel gave me a little gentle nudge today on that point. Thank you very much. And so in the first 20 reports that we've got, we have this slide. And tomorrow, when it goes live on the website in the day, it will have informed and collaborative community. Just because, and Lionel was 100% right, and bow to you on this one. There's been a few I've bowed to. There's not actually any bows the other way around. I wait for that moment. But anyway, the concept is that, so that's the first principle, so that's the overarching principle, and then you can kind of go to the second level, this concept of integrated institutions and instruments. So that's like the legislation, that's the government departments, that's the strategy, so that there is integration happening at that level. And then the third one is these durable processes that give us something that at least people feel that their voice is heard. So, and that's a really difficult, complex thing as well. So James is going to talk about these management practices, but that was kind of the frame. So I was trying to think about all this stuff going backwards and forwards, and I feel actually quite appropriately pulled between these two strong characters. So that's where we got to, and James is going to explain this in more detail here, and I will go back and sit down.
Cool. I suppose when we talk about the relationship between these more practical management practices and the principles of ocean governance, I suppose that the principles that Wendy has come up with are sort of the manner in which you do things, am I right?
Yes.
The ways in which they're carried out, whereas these are more specific, and they're not the be-all and end-all of the options and things that could be carried out from the principles in the vision, but the ones that we think are a good idea in the context of the feedback that you all gave us in May, those of you who were here. And so I'll go through them one by one. The first is adopting more of an ecosystem-based approach to management. And that's been sort of the key theme in the international environmental management literature for about 30 years. As I'm sure many of you will know, New Zealand lags way behind in this. And there's some more specific recommendations in the report about how that could go about. We recognise that it's very much an aspirational approach rather than one that you can implement immediately. So by ecosystem-based management, we mean the management of human activities in the oceans in a way that takes into account all the ways that they interact with marine dynamics, rather than just those related to a particular sector or mode of use. So, for example, if you're looking at the effects of fishing, often they will, in some systems, some fisheries management systems will operate only in terms of the effects of that fishery on an ecosystem without considering perhaps mining or coastal or land-based effects that occur nearby. The second is increased use of marine spatial planning. The first experiment with this in New Zealand, or the first true experiment, is currently underway in Auckland in the Hauraki Gulf. The outcomes of that will be available, I think, in around about July, and we'll see how that goes. I would like to see it carried out more often in the coastal environment, and I suppose the challenge to a lot of our activities in the wider oceanic space in the EEZ is in finding a way to expand those same collaborative planning processes out into deep water environments. And I suppose the next two are closely related. So we've got the regulation of cumulative activities in the EEZ and the extension of spatial protection to the EEZ. By cumulative activities, again, I mean the effects of different species, of different industries on the same ecosystem. There currently isn't a comprehensive mechanism in New Zealand to deal with that, or to even analyse it or recognise that it exists. It doesn't really work too great. And again, the extension of spatial protection in an integrated way outside the territorial sea, which extends 12 nautical miles from the coast, is I suppose, going to be necessary in the context of increasing human activity in deep water. Some people would argue that there is some mechanism of spatial protection in the form of the benthic protection areas in deep water. I've argued in the report that these don't constitute adequate protection, and again, largely because they extend only to one industry and don't consider the effects of others. Number 5, we've got prioritisation of multidisciplinary research. I mean scientific research that's focused on whole ecosystems rather than very particular aspects of those ecosystems. And again, multidisciplinary research, including not just across the boundaries of the physical sciences, but also including the social sciences as well. And lastly, I think drawing on that major theme of public education and public engagement is the cultivation of what a previous policy report called the cultivation of New Zealand's oceans constituency. And I think all the rest of this needs to be grounded in more of a, I suppose, a cultural shift towards a different way of looking at our relationship to the oceans. And if there's any, I suppose, any hope for a long-term political commitment, as Lionel mentioned, towards the kind of vision and principles that we've identified, then I suppose it has to be grounded in a wider appreciation for New Zealand's place within oceanic ecosystems.